Good morning, church family. It is Wednesday, July 7th. It's not Tuesday. About 4 o'clock yesterday, I realized that I had not done my Tuesday check-in video. So Talkabout Tuesday is now going to be Walkabout Wednesday. Not really, but I'm not walking anywhere. I'm just going to keep sitting. I just wanted to check in. I want to try to keep checking in. The beginning of the week and then the end of the week as we prepare for Sundays. I don't know how that might work. We might change that format. It might just be once a week. It just depends. I didn't feel like, at 4 o'clock when I remembered, I didn't feel like I had anything to really share. And so I didn't try to squeeze one in. But I'm coming to you this morning because I read through the devotional from Oswald this morning in my email, and I thought it was pretty good. It was a good share. I wanted to share that with you this morning. And I want to project for this Sunday. We're going to be in Psalm 51, verse 12b. We're going to finish Psalm 51 this Sunday, finish walking through the Psalm 51 prayer in verse 10, 11, and 12 by finishing verse 12, which is, grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. Grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. David praying this prayer after being called out on his sin with Bathsheba and his murder of her husband Uriah. He prays this prayer and he closes this prayer with, grant a willing spirit. Grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. And so I've been studying through that, and a text popped into my mind that I had not even been considering for this Sunday. It's Matthew 26 when Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane praying. But there was a particular part of that text that popped in my head, I think just this morning. For some reason, I was just thinking through in my quiet time this morning and thinking about this Psalm 51, excuse me, thinking about this Psalm 51 verse 12b prayer, and this idea of willing spirit, willing flesh popped in my head, and in my head I had it misremembered. In my head I had it remembered as the flesh is willing, but the spirit is weak, and so I looked into that just to feel like I was remembering correctly, and I wasn't. It's the willing is spirit, but the flesh is weak. But I went ahead and started studying through that this morning, and I don't know. I think that might be where we're headed this Sunday, is to walk through that moment with Jesus before God, his Father, praying with Jesus and his disciples, and some of the teaching that's going on there, some of the significance and what that means for us. Oh, goodness. Apparently I'm tired. So that will be a key verse there. The flesh is, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Some great study through those Greek words and some other Greek words, some other instances where Jesus is asking his disciples to stay alert, to stay awake. And I can't remember, the NIV is keep alert or keep awake. I can't remember right now. He references it in verse, I believe, 38 and again in verse 40. Basically, can't you stay awake for a little bit? Just really interesting study through that stuff. And so I think it correlates with the spirit behind David's prayer. Really the warning behind David's prayer for us in not letting our guard down, right? So anyway, we're going to, I think, move in that direction this Sunday, so I'm excited. So be reading that, Matthew 26, this moment in the garden. I don't know exactly the text that we'll be working through. I don't know how long or short. It's only Wednesday. That's fine. I'm just letting God lead. me in that direction. And a lot of times you get these ideas and these thoughts, and so you start studying through and letting the text speak, and then you make those decisions. So we'll see. But I want to share with you this Devo today. I'm excited about this Devo. Something I heard yesterday. Something I had watched the other day. Different things that have been kind of speaking. A message here is I thought important to share with you this morning, and so I'll do that. I got another yawn coming. Excuse me. It's awesome when you're yawning through a video that I'm already 5.5 minutes into, and I don't want to start it over. So we're going to keep going. This Devo is titled The Inevitable Penalty. Sounds like a lot of fun, I know. The Inevitable Penalty, Oswald Chambers, my utmost for his highest. Here he's referencing the text from Matthew 5, verse 26. Now, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. That's an incredible piece of text. I encourage you to read that also. Matthew 5, verse 26, which says, "You will by no means get out of there till you have paid the last penny." And this is what he writes. "There's no heaven that has a little corner of hell in it. God is determined to make you pure, holy, and right. And he will not allow... Wow! Excuse me, my goodness. And he will not allow... Let me start that over. There's no heaven that has a little corner of hell in it. God is determined to make you pure, holy, and right. And he will not allow you to escape from the scrutiny of the Holy Spirit for even one moment. He urged you to come to judgment immediately when he convicted you, but you did not obey. Then the inevitable process began to work, bringing its inevitable penalty. Now you have been thrown into prison, and you will by no means get out of here till you have paid the last penny." That's that reference to Matthew 5, verses 25 and 26. Yet you ask, is this a God of mercy and love? When seen from God's perspective, it is a glorious ministry of love. God is going to bring you out pure, spotless, and undefiled, but he wants you to recognize the nature you were exhibiting, the nature of demanding your right to yourself. There was something I heard the other day. It reminded me when I read, when seen from God's perspective, it is a glorious ministry, right? This idea that you will by no means get out until you have paid the last penalty, right? This inevitable penalty. We think that God is not loving, that God is not merciful because of the trials and the pain and the frustrations that we go through, but because of the way that things go in the world. We somehow think that means God is not a God of love, that he doesn't care. But when seen from God's perspective, it is a glorious ministry of love. When seen from God's perspective, the discipline and the hardships and the pain and the frustrations and things that we go through from his perspective, it is a glorious ministry of love. It is a glorious ministry of mercy and grace. The problem is we try to equate ourselves almost as equal with God, right? This was the beginning of sin, original sin, to know and be like God, or to be and know like God, right? We somehow level ourselves up to God's level. Again, that thing I heard yesterday was something along the lines of when you do your part, God does his part. That cannot be further from the truth. There is no level that we can reach that will equal God. There's nothing we do that God does in response for that thing that we do. God is, and we are because he is. And if we don't come to that perspective, that point of view where God is above us in all things, that God has given everything, and there's nothing that we necessarily can do or give in return to equal what God has given us, unless we get to that perspective, we're always going to be skewed in our thinking. There is God, and there is us. That is always going to be. That's always going to be the distinction. Always. Yes, we were created in God's image, but we were not created as gods. We were not created as little gods. We were not created as extensions of his godliness. We were just created in his image. He created us because he loves us and wanted relationship. And so he created something special that was not the same as the rest of creation. The rest of creation cannot have the relationship that we can have with God because it wasn't created in his image. It wasn't created for that purpose. It was created just to create. We were created expressly to be in relationship with God, but always God above us. Never equal. We are not equals. God has given everything. Christ gave everything in the cross, in his sacrifice. He gave everything to reconcile that sin that began in the garden. He gave it all. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can give back. There's no thing that we can do that God will come alongside in equal response to that thing. Never. And when we see that from God's perspective, it is a glorious ministry of love. When I think of my children and my son and my daughters, my grandchildren, my 2 girls and my little boy, there's a nothing. When I think of my stepsons, who I call my sons, there's nothing that they have to do to earn my love. Nothing. There's no level they have to reach. There's nothing they can do that will garner a response from me as an equal and kind of response, right? Nothing. My love for them is that word that you're already knowing that I can't think of. My love for them is that word. There's no strings attached, right? Whatever that word is, I can't think of. My love is that for them. It's there always. I'll always love them, no matter what happens. I might be disappointed. I might not like what happens, but I will always love them. I will always want to bring them into the family. I will always want to lead them and protect them and guide them in the right way. And when we see God when we see things, when things are seen from God's perspective, when we allow ourselves to be put into the place that we ought to be, not in authority, not equal to, not good inherently. We are not good inherently. Our hearts are evil and deceitful and our heart seeks itself. It seeks to be satisfied by self, right? Things we can bring in to satisfy, things that make us feel right or better or whole. Those things put us apart from God. We are not good inherently. We are evil. We are sinful. Our default is sin. It's selfishness. It's pride. God wants to reconcile us to him to complete what was broken. He wants to bring it back together and mend the bond. Broken by pride is a line from a movie called Brave. And so if we can see from his perspective, we will always see, no matter what the circumstance, we will always see that his ministry is a ministry of love, that judgment is a ministry of love. Let me go on. God is going to bring you out pure. He's going to bring you out spotless and undefiled. But he wants you to recognize the nature that you were exhibiting, the nature of demanding your right to yourself. The moment you are willing for God to change your nature, his recreating forces will begin to work. The moment you see things from his perspective and are willing to surrender yourself to his way, to his will, his recreating forces will begin to work. And the moment you realize that God's purpose is to get you into the right relationship with himself and then with others, he will reach to the very limits of the universe to help you take the right road. Decide to do it right now, saying Yes, Lord, I will write that letter, or I will be reconciled to that person now. Yes, Lord, I will surrender to you and lead me in whatever way you see fit. Oswald continues, these sermons of Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount, these sermons of Jesus are meant for your will and your conscience, not for your head. If you dispute these verses from the Sermon on the Mount with your head, you will dull the appeal to your heart. If you find yourself asking, I wonder why I'm not growing spiritually with God, then ask yourself if you are paying your debts from God's standpoint. Do now what you will have to do someday. Every moral question or call comes with an ought behind it, the knowledge of knowing what we ought to do. Great Devo. But honestly, it all comes from this perspective of surrender. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the message. It is everything for us, and it is the fulfillment of what began in the law and the prophets that we see all through the Old Testament, is this fulfillment. But the fulfillment was just to bridge that gap that then allows us, the ultimate glorification to one day be in heaven with God. But to walk in the fulfillment through Christ in the here and now makes the impact in our world that I believe we desperately need at this point, right? It's not about filling our church or other churches, but about a heart transformation in people so that they can mend the bond that was broken, so that they can walk in the way and obviously see heaven one day, but also be that example here. Be that example here and now, leading others. I think that's all I have to say. I hope that's encouraging. I'm not trying to come down heavy. I just believe the truth to be the truth, and the truth needs to be said. We are all sinful inherently. We are all not good inherently. We're evil. Sin broke us. Sin broke the relationship between us and God. Christ reconciles that relationship. He mends that brokenness. But it is only through him that we see it. We're not promised prosperity. We're not promised health. We're not promised wealth. Any text or teacher or anyone that tries to say that there's some sort of a Jesus and sort of gospel, it's ridiculous. There isn't. It is only Christ, and it is only through Christ that we are saved. Works come through that relationship. The good things that we do for people and for others comes through that relationship, not because of it. It's fruit, right? It's fruit. It's not a root, it's a fruit. So anyway, I love you guys. I hope that you are going to enjoy this sunny, hot day. I hope it's something that you enjoy. I do not like these hot days. The sun is beautiful. But I encourage you guys to jump into the Word, be reading through those Psalm prayers, 139, verse 23 to 24, Psalm 51, verse 10, 11, and 12. Read in Matthew 26 this text of the Garden of the Gethsemane, this interchange between Jesus and God through prayer, the interchange between Jesus and the disciples. Put yourself in those perspectives if you can. And maybe read through the Beatitudes. The Sermon on the Mount. Such good stuff. I love you. Enjoy your Wednesday. Happy July 1st. I think it's my buddy Billy's birthday today. Happy birthday, brother. And I hope you just enjoy your day and spend time with the Lord. Love you. See you guys later.